Straight ahead on Law and Crime Daily. Could convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell receive a new trial? Why a juror in the case now faces questioning under oath from a federal judge. Plus, jury selection will soon begin in the federal trial of accused Sarah Lawrence cult leader Lawrence Ray. And did this Ohio doctor help his patients into their next chapter or murder them in cold blood?
This is the mess they created, and not only with one witness, but with two witnesses, and we've been dancing around and tiptoeing around the tulips the whole time with these report issues.
But first, the January 6th attacks.
Donald Trump always has a very aggressive legal team.
What former Attorney General Bill Barr says of Trump and the insurrection of the Capitol. Law and Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Law and Crime Daily. I'm Brian Buckmeyer along with Terry Austin. Former Attorney General Bill Barr speaks out about his tenure under then President Donald Trump. This as the January 6th committee seeks more documents claiming the former president and others were engaged in a criminal conspiracy. Law and Crime's Angela Levy is here with what Barr had to say as well as thoughts from a former federal prosecutor.
Bill Barr spoke to NBC News and said if he were AG, he wouldn't prosecute President Trump for January 6th or for taking classified documents with him to Mar-a-Lago from the White House. This comes as new reporting suggests that Trump likely will not face tax fraud charges in New York.
I told him that all this stuff was bullshit and about election fraud.
Former Attorney General Bill Barr said that conversation with then-President Trump led to him offering his resignation and it being accepted. Just last week, the January 6th committee filed documents alleging a likely criminal conspiracy in the attempt to overthrow the election. The committee is asking for access to emails from John Eastman, a lawyer who worked to overturn the election. Eastman has claimed attorney-client privilege. The committee cannot file criminal charges. Only the Justice Department can do that. So what's the likelihood Donald Trump will actually be prosecuted?
I think there's only maybe a 15% chance he will be prosecuted by state or federal authorities.
Gene Rossi is a former federal prosecutor and law and crime legal analyst. He would expect Trump to mount a vigorous defense and...
I think the prosecutors are a little bit cautious and afraid of losing the case against Donald Trump.
Over the weekend, the New York Times reported that Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg has concerns over the strength of the financial crimes case the office has been presenting to the grand jury against Trump. 2 career prosecutors have resigned. Now, the New York Times reports that other prosecutors resigned last year because they were on the flip side of that. They believed that the investigation was moving too swiftly and with this evidence that was being presented to the grand jury. As for that Bill Barr interview, the former president sent a letter to Lester Holt basically trashing Bill Barr, saying that his book is fake and generally calling him slow and lethargic. Brian?
Thanks, Anjanette. Joining us today is civil rights attorney Krista Ramey and Terry Austin as we discuss the latest in the events surrounding January 6th. Krista, wrong but not illegal. That seems to be the takeaway from Barr's interview. But does this interview push the needle for Trump legally in any way?
I'm not sure that it does, and I'm not surprised that Bill Barr said what he said. He's a strong believer in the authoritarian president, or whatever they call it, broad presidential powers. And so it's going to mean a lot for him to believe that Trump broke the law. I tend to fall on the side of I don't think that there will be criminal charges brought during Biden's first term, only if Biden is reelected. It doesn't make sense, and it's too much of a political question. And I think that this White House probably doesn't have the political will or strength to push that through.
Yeah. Now, Terry, former President Trump had some harsh words for Barr. How's this back and forth playing out for Mr. Trump?
Actually, I think it's playing out very well for Mr. Trump. Look, his legal defense seems to be to delay, to distract, to disparage others. And it's worked for him so far through the impeachment processes and now through this litigation. The issue here really is whether Trump inspired an insurrection. He either did or he didn't. And the legal defense is going to be based on the evidence or the lack of evidence. And basically, if Trump is trying to say that he had nothing to do with it. So far, the delay is really helping him. And Barr basically disagreed that the election was stolen, but he basically is defending Trump on almost every single thing else. So I think at the end of the day, Trump is going to be successful. I agree with Jean and I agree with Krista. I don't think it's going to be prosecuted.
Let's ask that question. Anjanette, what is the Manhattan DA's office saying about the story in the New York Times?
Well, they're not saying much. They've led people to believe that this is still an ongoing investigation, and it has been going on for years now. But I reached out to Alvin Bragg's press office earlier, and they still have not returned my email. That is how they said they wanted to be contacted about this matter and any other matters by the press, and still no response.
Right, more investigation, more delays. Of course, we'll keep eyes on any developments and bring them back to you here at Law&Crime Daily. Switching gears now, disgraced comedian Bill Cosby will remain a free man as the Supreme Court of the United States rejects a Pennsylvania state bid to reinstate his sexual assault conviction. Now, back in 2018, Cosby was convicted of aggravated assault for drugging and sexually assaulting Andrea Constant in 2004. In June of last year, Cosby was released from prison when the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled in favor of Cosby, saying his due process rights had been violated. That ruling stems from a 2005 agreement between Cosby and a Montgomery County district attorney, where Cosby gave his deposition in exchange for a decision not to prosecute him. In a statement, Cosby's spokesperson said in part, quote, "This is truly a victory for Mr. Cosby, but it shows that cheating will never get you far in life." And the corruption that lies within Montgomery County District Attorney's office has been brought to center stage of the world. Former Empire TV actor Jussie Smollett is set to be sentenced on Thursday, months after being convicted of staging a hate crime in 2019. In December, Smollett was found guilty of 5 of 6 felony disorderly conduct charges for falsely reporting he was a victim of a hate crime. He originally told police he was attacked by 2 unknown men who poured bleach on him, wrapped a noose around his neck, and called him racist and homophobic slurs. At trial last year, 2 brothers testified that Smollett paid them to attack him in an attempt to get media attention. Last month, Smollett requested either a new trial or that a judge reverse the verdict. He's claiming his constitutional rights were violated when his legal team wasn't allowed to participate in jury selection. Meanwhile, the Chicago Police Department is now seeking up to $130,000 worth of restitution for investigating the hoax hate crime. Still ahead on Law&Crime Daily, federal trial will soon be in session for the accused Sarah Lawrence cult leader. But first, comfort care or murder? We head to Ohio, where a former ICU doctor stands trial for allegedly killing 14 patients.
Hi, this is Dan Abrams with exciting news for all of our Law and Crime followers on YouTube. You can now get the live Law and Crime Network with YouTubeTV for all of your daily live trial coverage, legal news, expert analysis, and original true crime programs. Subscribe to YouTubeTV today and then locate Law and Crime in the channel guide. And for only $1.99 a month, you can add the network to your bundle. Watch Law and Crime every day with YouTubeTV. We put you in the jury box.
Welcome back to Law&Crime Daily. An Ohio trial continues into its 3rd week of testimony as a former doctor accused of killing 14 patients faces murder charges. Testimony resumed Monday morning after arguments over privileged information. William Husel allegedly killed over a dozen patients by ordering excessive and lethal doses of fentanyl while they were being treated in the ICU. The defense team for the former Mont Carmel physician claims he was giving his patients end-of-life comfort care. Monday started off with the prosecution and defense discussing testimony from 2 witnesses with the judge, continuing arguments from Thursday that they had relied on privileged information from confidential reports. On Thursday, Husel's defense moved for a mistrial, saying the testimony prejudiced Husel and that the reports weren't made available to the defense. Prosecutors countered, arguing the expert testimony gave information based on their expertise without waiving privilege.
He testified about some phantom report, of which, in fact, is his work, his review of certain privileged documents. I would like to have what he relied on. And that's the only way I can properly cross-examine him. If you looked at these papers, I need to see them too to be able to see if you're lying or not. And I can't. So they can't have it both ways, having their cake and eat it too. And in fact, the prosecution was aware that this was based on privileged information and improperly solicited over our objections. So this is the mess they created, and not only with one witness, but with two witnesses, and we've been dancing around and tiptoeing around the tulips the whole time with these report issues.
The judge ultimately decided not to address the privileged information issue with the jury. Questioning moved on to a new witness Monday, Dr. David Ralston, an ICU physician who worked alongside Husel. During cross-examination, he was asked if there were any complaints made against Husel.
You would agree with me that before you got that call from Dr. Swart, that at no period of time in 2013 had you ever heard from a nurse any complaints with respect to Dr. Husel?
That is correct.
And the same question about that year, no complaints in 2013 from any physicians about Dr. Husel?
That is correct.
Or anyone in critical care, correct?
That's correct.
Husel is accused of giving high doses of fentanyl to his ICU patients and was initially charged with 25 murders. 11 were dismissed in January. His defense team argues Mount Carmel Hospital had no threshold put in place for the amount of fentanyl that could be given to patients. That has since changed. Back to help break down the case of the accused deadly doctor is civil rights attorney Krista Ramey and Terry Austin. Terry, there have been multiple experts and physicians testifying in this case. Why do you think the parties are spending so much time discussing their credentials?
You know what, Brian, that's a good question. It's got to be tedious for that jury to have to listen to all of these lengthy qualifications. What school did you attend? What articles did you write? What associations are you part of? But it's very important to list all of that so the jury can understand this is a qualified person. This is someone who is credible. And not only that, the judge actually has to determine whether or not that witness qualifies as an expert and can give their opinion. That argument you heard about going back and forth over what they listened to, was it privileged? That's important too, because what they actually read to prepare for that expert testimony is very important. So it's boring and tedious, but very necessary.
All right, so that's it from like a very high level in terms of expertise. Let's talk about one of those doctors. Krista, testimony continued with Dr. Ralston. How's his testimony fitting into the trial?
Well, I think it's fitting in well, actually. He's testifying as an ICU doctor, which is what Husel was. And he's testifying about his custom and practice and how it differed from the defendants. And he is, while a percipient witness, is being allowed to give a lot of opinion testimony in front of this jury, which, you know, some might argue is not appropriate because he wasn't retained as expert witness and obviously did not turn over the information that he relied upon like expert witnesses ordinarily are required to do.
All right, seems like Ohio's going to another doctor for a second opinion. We'll see if Ralston's testimony is what's needed to convict Husel. But of course, as the case continues, we'll give you updates here at Law and Crime Daily, and make sure to watch Gavel to Gavel coverage at the Law and Crime Network. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, could convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell be granted a new trial? Plus, an accused cult leader is set to stand trial for federal sex crimes, extortion, and psychological abuse. We break down the case of the Sarah Lawrence cult next. Welcome back. The man accused of facilitating a cult at Sarah Lawrence College is set to stand trial in a New York federal court beginning this week. Lawrence Ray, also known as Lawrence Greco, faces 17 charges, including sex trafficking, extortion, racketeering, conspiracy, and violent crime in aid of racketeering, stemming from a 10-year stint as an alleged sex cult leader. Prosecutors say Ray moved into his daughter's college home back in 2010 to get back on his feet after being released from prison. He lived there with her and her college classmates. They say Ray went on to target his daughter's friends, forcing them to partake in bizarre group therapy sessions, forced labor, and sex trafficking. Prosecutors also say Ray extorted thousands of dollars from the girls, physically abused some of them, and sexually groomed others. Facing similar and related charges is Isabel Pollock, who was once thought to be a victim. Prosecutors say Ray recruited Pollock into the scheme to gain trust from other students and alienate them from their parents. Jury selection in Ray's trial is set for Tuesday, with opening statements expected to be presented on Wednesday. Law and Crime's Adam Classfeld will be at the courthouse for gavel-to-gavel coverage. Civil rights attorney Krista Ramey and co-host Terry Austin are back as we preview the Sarah Lawrence cult federal trial. Terry, with jury selection beginning Tuesday, what defense do you think Ray will argue?
You know, this is a very difficult case to defend. First of all, who moves into the dorm of their daughter? I'm surprised that the college allowed that to happen. It definitely reminds me of the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell case that we recently saw being convicted there. Sex trafficking is a horrible, serious offense. And if, in fact, Ray's daughter was a victim, that makes it even more heinous. As far as his defense is concerned, I think he's going to have a very uphill battle. It sounds like the prosecution has a lot of information. They have cell phone videos. They say that they have witnesses, some 17 witnesses, financial records. So I think it's going to be difficult to defend, and the facts of the case are horrific.
I mean, Krista, Terry named some of them already, but Keith Raniere, R. Kelly, Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, New York federal courts have been going after sex trafficking in a major way. Do you expect Lawrence Ray to be the next name in that long list?
I do. I've noticed that since the Me Too movement, and I draw a direct connection with it, prosecutors are more vigorously prosecuting these cases. The defenses of she asked for it or she consented don't work anymore. And you are seeing these convictions come down at a greater rate across the country.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. Again, Adam Classfeld is in that court. We'll make sure to get gavel-to-gavel coverage from him. And make sure to check out his tweets. They're always really good. And actor Alec Baldwin says the Rust movie lawsuits are targeting wealthy people instead of those who were negligent in the deadly movie set shooting. Over the weekend, Baldwin was questioned about the lawsuits at a film festival in Boulder, Colorado. Baldwin claims that some lawsuits around the movie are going after the wrong people, saying those who are negligent are the people with no money, while people with money are the ones being blamed for the tragic shooting. He alleges the lawsuits are motivated by money. This comes after the family of Helena Hutchins files a wrongful death lawsuit. Hutchins was shot and killed last October when a prop gun went off on the set of the Western movie Rust. Baldwin, who was holding the gun at the time, claims to have never pulled the trigger. When we come back, the trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. Did a federal juror lie on his questionnaire? We look ahead to the juror's testimony under oath. Will he plead the fifth, or will he be offered immunity? Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily. A juror will soon face questioning under oath after accusations that he lied on the juror questionnaire in the Ghislaine Maxwell federal sex crimes trial. All this stems from a juror known as Scotty David, who helped convict Maxwell of federal sex trafficking charges in December of last year. On the jury questionnaire filled out ahead of the trial, David indicated he had not been sexually assaulted. But during deliberations and post-trial interviews, David revealed he had been sexually assaulted as a child. While Judge Allison Nathan denied Maxwell's defense motion for a new trial, she ordered David to appear for sworn testimony. That's scheduled for Tuesday. David has indicated he would plead the fifth unless he's offered immunity to testify. According to court records, prosecutors may offer David immunity. Right now, Maxwell faces up to 65 years in prison. Prosecutors say Maxwell worked with late financier Jeffrey Epstein to groom and traffic underage girls. Epstein died by suicide in 2019 before his case went to trial. All right, Krista, plead the fifth or testify under immunity. What do you think the prosecution wants here, since they typically give immunity?
Well, it's a tough call because it's their case, right? And they're the ones that get to decide whether or not to give immunity. I think in the interest of justice, they're going to want to give immunity to this juror. The jurors sometimes want to get on jury panels. You need to get behind the reason and the motivation for it to find out if it did play a role in his, pushing a jury one way or the other during deliberations. I think it's important enough that you'll see immunity given.
All right, Terry, let's speculate, let's imagine, let's see how this plays out. But let's say Scotty David testifies that he did lie on his questionnaire. What's the likelihood Maxwell receives a new trial?
Listen, if he does testify that he lied, I think there's a very good possibility there will be a new trial, whether you want a new trial or not. First of all, he either lied or he misled the attorneys. Now, if he gets immunity, of course, he won't be held in contempt, but any other juror would be held in contempt if there is no immunity granted. But if, in fact, he did lie and it affected the deliberations, that's the whole thing, Brian, whether or not it affected the deliberations. If it didn't, then it could not maybe be a new trial. But if it did, that's important. And we have heard that the fact he was talking about what happened to him when he was a child and how the witnesses really could have forgotten it or how they might not have reported it for a long time. So I do think that could have affected the deliberations because he basically influenced those jurors. And the judge might say at the end of the day that a new trial is granted here.
Yeah, we often only see that first prong that, hey, I lied on a questionnaire or whatever it may be. But I think to your point, Terry, that second part of how it may or may not have influenced the jury, that's the part, at least as me as a defense attorney, I would hang my hat on. And I think I don't really want to see it for the alleged victims in this case to have to redo a case, but here at Law&Crime Daily, we would love to see another Ghislaine Maxwell trial. It'd be interesting to see how that case either stays the same or changes. Anyways, Krista, thank you for joining us. Terry, always a pleasure. And of course, thank you for joining us here at Law&Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.